so impressed with this little tank. Really low maintenance again, but I think this might be put into production at some point. So here we have the ScaperLine 90. Hi everyone, welcome to a new video. I'm here in the Tropica test lab, and it's also a little mini studio, and I wanted to take you through a couple of our low-tech aquascapes that we've been growing in for the past few months or so. Let's start off with this beautiful little Superfish setup. I think it's called the Scaper 45. I'll leave a title below, and I'll just take you through the whole setup, the system itself, the plants, and why I think it's a really good aquascape and an ideal entry-level aquascaping startup kit. So as you can see, I mean, it's a beautiful aquascape, mature. It reminds me of a kind of classic 1990s Amano style nature aquarium. We're featuring all easy plants in here. There's no CO2 injection. We're not using any kind of special soil. It's actually like a fine gravel with a Tropica substrate base layer. So everything in here is very achievable and very affordable. The only thing we have changed is the lighting. We're using a Kessel. This is the A80, which I believe is only 15 watts. The actual supplied lighting we found was too strong, and without CO2 injection tends to encourage algae. The light unit that comes with the Superfish kit isn't actually controllable on this system. So yeah, like I say, it's a beautiful little kit, and it's very affordable as well. It comes with a beautiful low iron glass, very well built. Silicone work is very neat. Hang on the back filter, very functional. Not a massive amount of flow, but we don't need that with the setup that we've got with the easy plants. Hardscape, just a few rocks. There's 3 stones in there. They're just like a generic grey kind of boulder type stone. And then we've just got some kind of driftwood there as well. So let's just take you through the plants. Here, floating plant at the top here, this is Salvinia minima. Just a very easy to grow floating plant. Floating plants are great for removing nutrients and creating shade, which can help to limit algae growth. But of course, make sure you do keep it thinned out appropriately so it doesn't completely smother the plants below and potentially block the light. The filter does come with a surface skimmer, so it will try to suck in some of those floating plants, as you can see, but no problem. Other plants we've got, let's have a look at the background stems. So over here on the right we have Hygrophila polysperma rosenvig, which is a variant of the regular polysperma, but has some kind of inherited virus which gives it this pink coloration, which is more pronounced under high lighting. And then over to the kind of background centre we have a Ludwigia repens rubin, and there's also the odd stem there, in that more pinky stem there in the centre. That's actually Ludwigia palustris super red. As you can see, not very intense red because we're not running intense lighting. Most plants tend to go more red with more powerful lights. Over to the back left now, this is the Hygrophila polysperma. No, it's not. It's Hygrophila coriambosa simensis 53B. This is a great background plant and looking really, really healthy. And we have some attaching plants here. You may recognise a couple of these. The smallest one here, this is a Nubia. No, it's not. I'm getting my names mixed up today. This is Bucophilandra needleleaf. The tiny leaves there, they are really small. They're just the size of my little fingernail, really. And then below that we have the absolutely stunning Bucophilandra sordid orla blue. Again, not so colourful because of the lighting, but I will show you an example in the high-tech tank in a minute of what it can look like with highlighting and CO2 injection, just to give you a comparison. So in the centre there we have the beautiful Anubias petite. Absolutely love this plant. It's a slow grower. There's no signs of any algae in here, which is really great. Yeah, just a really slow growing, easy, low maintenance attaching plant, suitable for almost any aquarium. To the right of that, as a more kind of a focal point plant, we've got the Microsorum terapus trident, also known as trident fern. This does need to be thinned out now and again because it can potentially get a bit big for this tank, but because we're running low energy, i.e. low light and no CO2, it is staying, relatively manageable, doesn't get too big too quickly. And then we have in the mid-ground shaded there, you might just be able to make out some crypt leaves. This is Cryptocorini Wendertii green. Most of these were the 1-2 grows, so no problem start up. This is about 6 months old now, and shout out to my colleague Jonas, who's our editor and content creator in-house here at Tropica. He has been maintaining it very well, as you can tell. Final plant there, we have the no it's not, I keep getting it wrong again, sorry. This is Helanthium tenellum green, and just a very easy foreground carpeting plant. As you can see, sending out runners quite prolifically. And there is some kind of thin, some of the leaves aren't looking too healthy, a little bit of die off there, but overall, looking at the aquascape as a whole, it looks absolutely fantastic. If you did use the supplied lighting, I would suggest having some form of limiting that light, so maybe put some tape over it, or maybe you could buy a third-party inline dimmer switch. Maybe the Twin Star units, the inline dimmers might work on this, I'm not sure, but the Kessel is working great, but it is a relatively expensive light, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just a really great example of what you can achieve without CO2 injection, powerful lighting, and relatively low maintenance. No fish in here at the moment. There are a few cherry shrimp. See if I can find one. There's one on the stone. Don't tend to put fish in our display tanks here in the studio because they are kind of turned over and used for different aquascapes and projects, and we don't really want to stress the fish unnecessarily. So let me know what you think in the comments about this scape. I think it's actually my favourite style, just a classic nature aquarium, not too impactful hardscape, really focusing on those beautiful lush plants. Okay, let's move on over to this low-tech Iwagumi. This is actually, I think it's about 60 centimetres, maybe a bit 65 centimetres. This holds around, I probably want to say about 80 litres or so, which is about 20 US gallons. We have T5 lighting, which is really old school, 6,500 Kelvin, so really great for the greens. But as you may know, fluorescent tubes are no longer manufactured anymore, so these are very old school and will eventually probably be replaced with LEDs. But yeah, classic kind of sands on Iwagumi. That means 3 stones, and the plants, it just looks lovely. It's just really low maintenance again, and yeah, no CO2 injection. Some interesting observations on the plants actually. There are some nutrient deficiencies and some interesting growth patterns. So for instance, the Hygrophila Aquarium Bosa Siamensis 53B, just check out how compact it is and how kind of linear it's growing, kind of how vertical it's growing when you compare it to the same species in here. And so that's just really interesting, isn't it? So the water chemistry is very similar. We're using the same water supply, but the lighting's different and the substrate's different. So I wonder if that is making the change, making the overall difference in that growth form. Really interesting to observe that. We do have another background plant, and that is the Cryptocorini crispitula. This is a 1-2 grow, and that was designed to actually be the background plant that we were going to use forever. But we put the 53B in there to act as a helping plant, which helps to minimise algae on the startup phase. But we loved it so much that we kept it in there. The stones are red lava rock, just the classic, like I say, sands on Iwagumi. Got the main rock there and the 2 supporting stones there, nothing too fancy. Has been plagued with a little bit of algae over the months, but it is cleared up now, and we do have a population of cherry shrimp in there. You might just be able to make those out on the stone. So mid-ground we do have some Sterogoni repens. Now this is struggling somewhat. You can see the lower portions are sort of getting some holes and kind of dying off a little bit. Some of the leaves are really pale and showing some kind of veining, so it shows a little bit of a nutrient deficiency there potentially. But still, overall, when you look at the tank as an overall unit, it is really impressive, especially as a non-CO2, low-tech setup. We are using aquarium soil, which is a little bit more expensive than just using sand and a substrate underneath. But it does have more benefits, more nutrients, it softens the water a little bit as well, and arguably a better home for bacteria because of its porous structure. And finally, the final plant here is the Marsilea hirsuta, which is one of the easiest carpeting plants that you can grow really. Again, as you can see, carpeting really nicely without any CO2 injection. All the tanks are due maintenance, so they aren't looking their absolute best, but I just kind of wanted to show you a bit of a success story that you can achieve here with low-tech setups. Buy healthy aquarium plants to start with, ideally Tropica 1-2 grow or pots, and speak to your local retailer to see if they can get them in for you. And Tropica do deliver to around 60 countries around the world now. My favourite is the 1-2 grows. They're guaranteed to be free from algae, pests, snails, pesticides. They're already adapted to grow underwater, and you actually get so much more quantity in that small pot versus a regular pot. I forgot to say there is some floating plants in here as well. Again, this is the Salvinia minima. I will take you over to the high-tech tank in a moment. I'll just wait for the lights to come on, but I just thought I'd show you some of the rarer plants that we're keeping here at Tropica while I'm here. This is really beautiful. We're actually producing this now. This is the Bacopa saltzmani purple. Absolutely stunning Bacopa there. And behind that we have the Ludwigia palustris green, which is really interesting. It's actually a kind of an offshoot of the red, which you'd think it would be the other way around. You'd think the green would kind of mutate to form the red, but it's been the other way around. It's actually not so easy to grow as the red, believe it or not, and it doesn't seem to grow very vertically. It sends out these side shoots, so just a bit of a different growth form and different plant to experiment with potentially. This is really interesting. We're not putting this into production yet or anytime soon, but just a lovely different form of Anubias, very similar to Anubias mini coin, but we have that kind of variegated leaf. This is known in the hobby as Anubias barteri stardust. So yeah, I'd love to see this. I prefer this to the Pinto actually. We've got some Nymphia lotus lilies here, Echinodorus here on the left. This is Echinodorus. Actually no, normally they have the labels on the front of the aquarium, but I don't actually know what that is. If anyone knows in the comments, let me know. It looks like a Hermione eye or something, maybe. Beautiful textures on those leaves, isn't it? This is an interesting plant. This is quite novel. This is actually a Hygrophila polysperma that's almost white, but it does have some green on it. So, pure white plants don't tend to do very well because of their lack of chlorophyll, which is what's responsible for helping to photosynthesize. So if you don't have much green in the plant, it's probably less efficient at photosynthesizing. So you probably need a little bit more light than the regular polysperma, which is a very easy plant, but just an interesting one there. And this is interesting as well. I think this might be put into production at some point. This is actually known as Lismachia parvifolia. So looks like Samilus, which is an old school plant that some of you may know, but actually, believe it or not, is a stem plant that just grows as a very compact stem, And yeah, it looks like more like a rosette plant, doesn't it? Here's the classic willow moss. Marna used to love this. Actually very, very big moss. The fronds are much, much bigger than regular mosses. And then here we have, this is new into production now at Tropica. This is the Hygrophila surfilum, which is a carpeting hygrophila, a bit like a giant Monte Carlo. So that's it for the kind of low-tech tanks. The Iwagumi there, and the classic nature aquarium, and then we'll just wait for this light to come on. So here we have the Awase ScaperLine 90 that has been set up specifically to showcase Tropica's newest plant species. So I think there's 15 in here, 15 of our newest species that have all either been released this year or last year. So I'll just give you a quick rundown of the scape itself. It has been featured on the channel before, but I did actually do some rescaping this week whilst I'm here in Denmark, just to showcase some of the plants better, because they were being hidden at the back. So in particular, the Cryptogorani nurii here, I basically swapped this with the Spirulus red. So obviously the red looks better in the back because it's a taller plant, and this looks better in the foreground because it's a shorter plant. We also have the beautiful Bacopa Saltzmani purple, which we talked about earlier in one of the test tanks. And so this will eventually grow taller as well. Relatively slow growing stem plant actually, and it will be a little bit overshadowed by the Spirulus, so probably even a bit more slow. The main kind of focal point plant, which is really interesting, we don't normally do this, is the Nubius coin leaf. And I have to say, I'm so impressed that there's very little, if not any, nuisance algae on the leaves, considering it's getting a lot of light. This is a Chihiros WRGB2 running at 50%, so it's getting considerable light there. So yeah, great job to Jonas again for doing a fine job at maintaining these tanks. Whatever he's doing is obviously working. The kind of such a bold aquascape, because we're featuring all brand new plants. It's not specifically designed to showcase aquascaping skill, but more the plants themselves. But even so, it's an interesting scape, isn't it? Lots of colour there, of course. The Rotala blood red, absolutely stunning. Actually, it will turn red even in lower energy conditions when compared with the regular rotundifolia or HRAR. So definitely a stem plant worth considering if you want to get that red look with a Rotala species without necessarily too much light or CO2 injection. It is a little bit bigger than, I'd say, the regular HRAR or rotundifolia or Rotala green. The leaves do tend to grow a little bit larger, which is interesting. Here we have the absolutely stunning Bucophalandra Sordidorla blue, which is actually looking more red. It's just so interesting how it changes its leaf colour depending on the conditions. So if I showed you from above, can you see that? No, you can't really see that. So here's the Bucophalandra from above, and you can see it's definitely more kind of red than blue. And depending on what viewing angle you have as well, and depending on the conditions, it will change colour. So it's really interesting. I mean, there's a bit of blue there, very kind of iridescent, almost like a pearlescent finish, which is such an interesting look on an aquarium plant, and such glossy leaves. Really, really beautiful. And not surprisingly, it's selling very well for us at Tropica. Really, really love this Bucophalandra. I've got it growing in one of my 60s at home, but I don't tend to grow much Bucophalandra at home so much. Maybe it's time to focus on it a bit more. So what else do we have? I'll leave the filter off for now because it's just a bit more of a peaceful vibe. We have in the background a couple of new species. We already talked about the Ludwigia palustrous green. But then we have a very interesting Hygrophila odora, which isn't so commonly available in the hobby. Actually pretty difficult to grow, I'd say. We've had some challenges here at Tropica growing it in here. it is a slow grower, so, but it does have that beautiful kind of serrated leaf, very distinctive, a little bit like Deformis, I'd say, but like I say, a little bit more challenging. Below that we got the classic, well I say classic, it's still relatively new to the hobby, but I've been using it in a lot of scapes recently. This is the Vietnam. It's one of the easiest, if not the easiest, Aerocauron species. Very easy, suitable for foregrounds in bigger tanks, or mid-ground in bigger tanks, and tolerates shade, tolerates no CO2 injection, grows as a rosette, so it's relatively low maintenance, in fact very low maintenance really. And just yeah, love it, really love this. This is interesting. This is the Echinodorus tropica. This is as a 1-2 grow cup, and most of these plants are 1-2 grow, and very, very easy Echinodorus, and very sort of tough leathery leaves when compared with other Echinodorus species, and definitely tolerates shade, tolerates no CO2 injection, definitely benefit from a nutrient rich substrate. In front of that, I've replanted this completely as part of the rescape. The tiny little plants at the front there, they're Hygrophilus surfilum, which I showed you earlier in the test tank. That will eventually carpet all the way along like a big Monte Carlo. And behind that, that isn't Anubias, that is actually Schismatoglottis praetoi. And this was just actually growing in so much shade that I didn't even notice it. And then when I did the rescape, pulled it all out and then replanted it towards the front. Those leaves will get probably 5 times as big and a much darker green colour. I'll just show you what it looks like when it's mature, actually, give you an idea. Here we have it here. So the leaves are a little bit like Anubias nana, maybe a cross between a petite and a nana, are a bit of a brighter green colour. Talked about the Nurii, absolutely stunning. Love this, love the leaf. Love the leaf colours, look at that characteristic sort of textures on there, beautiful. A coin leaf, this is probably one of the easiest and most prolific Anubias in my experience. This is growing really well in my cichlid tank at home. I did put 3 or 4 different Anubia species in here, and this is absolutely dominated, so it's probably nearly the only species in there now. The other stuff has just been taken over by the coin leaf over the last couple of years when I originally planted it. So it's actually really like this. It's just a bit different, obviously very much of a rounder leaf when compared with the regular Anubias nana. Has a curled kind of leaf appearance, and I like that kind of herringbone sort of formation, almost a little bit like the coffeefolia texture. Yeah, so there we have it, the ScaperLine 90. Obviously a huge fan of Awase ScaperLines. I mean, the quality of the tank and everything is far superior to the cheaper Superfish kit, but you do obviously pay for that privilege. The cabinet quality, filtration is the Biomaster, of course, Biomaster 600. Got the magnetic tool holders on the side here. Get all your equipment there for maintenance, the CO2 kit, and there. Sliding drawer as well for the filter maintenance. So it's a great system. A journey for an aquascaper could be, get a budget kit, easy plants, no CO2, have success with this, really enjoy the hobby, experiment, have fun, and then you can, if you wish, you can always upgrade more of an aspirational system to something like this, which would suit, obviously a modern home with, clean lines and just a real lovely focal point. I can see this being in a beautiful living space, as the focal point, and then you could have something like this more, on a desk even, or, somewhere still where you can appreciate it, maybe a kitchen, but just the size of it, obviously it's on a table, so it's not too heavy, but just a lovely contrast between the two systems. And one isn't necessarily better than the other, they're just different, and that's the beautiful thing about aquascaping. It's so inclusive, it's an art form that is subjective, and just as diverse as the actual styles of the scapes themselves from an aesthetic point of view. There's so much diversity in the methodologies of keeping these aquascapes running. So, you know, running CO2 injection on here, you know, lots more nutrition from the fertilizers, from the soil, high-tech lighting, you know, glass pipes, external canister filter. You know, this whole system is going to be a few £1,000s, whereas something like this is just a couple of £100, but arguably just as impressive, just as beautiful to live with. So you take your pick. There's no right or wrong. Maintenance wise, I will do the maintenance now. I'll do the regular kind of weekly maintenance that happens on there. I'm not here every week, obviously. I come here once every 2 months now, but I will be doing the weekly maintenance on these for Jonas, who's busy doing other things, and I actually really enjoy the maintenance. So I'll end on that note, guys, and thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And yeah, let me know what your favourite plant is. I think mine's either the Sordidora blue or the Spiralus red. Absolutely stunning background plant, Cryptocoryne Spiralus red, now available from Tropica. So thanks again, take care, and see you on the next one. In fact, the next one's going to be interesting. I've been away all week here in Denmark, and I think my Dutch tank has gone wrong, so that will be a video on how I fix that. Okay, I'm definitely going now. Cheerio.